Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Amaka. In this tutorial, we are going to be learning how to make this beautiful top you are seeing on the thumbnail. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please click on the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I upload new videos. So let's get started. So now I've drawn some lines already. I'm going to explain what I did here. Now this is my starting point, which is also going to serve as my shoulder line. This is my bust point, my under bust point, my waist point, the full length of the top, and this is that extension at the front of the front panel. That asymmetric design on the lower part, I came down by 4 inches for it. From the full length of the top, I came down by 4 inches for that asymmetric design on the lower part of the front panel. 4 inches. From the full length of the top, I came down by 4 inches. Now I'm going to label these lines. Now take note, my paper is on fold. I folded my paper into 2. So I'm going to label these lines. Now this is my bust point, my under bust point, my waist point, the full length of the top, and this is that extension at the front panel. So I'm going to start by taking my shoulder measurement. Half of my shoulder measurement is 7.5 inches plus half inch seam allowance. That gives you 8 inches. So I'm going to mark 8 inches here. The neck width I'm working with is 3 inches. So I'm going to mark 3 inches here. So from this shoulder measurement, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant and I'll connect it to the neckline. So after that, I'm going to impute my armhole depth. Now I'm working with half of my armhole measurement, which is 8 inches. Another way to do this is to divide your bust circumference by 6, and whatever it gives you, you add 1.5 inches to it, and whatever it gives you, that's your armhole depth. So I'm going to mark 8 inches here. Now this measurement I have here, I'm going to bring it down here, and I'll connect this point. I'll connect this point to this point, and I'll extend this point to this point. So the next thing I'm going to do is to find the midpoint of this line. Now this is the midpoint of this line. From this midpoint, I'll go in by ½ inch and I'll mark. Now this is my chest point. So on my chest point, I'm going to take my bust measurement on my chest point. My bust circumference divided by 4 gives you 9.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 9.5 inches here. And I'll connect the points just like this. Now I'm going to impute my dart. For me to do that, I'm going to be working with my bust span measurement. Half of my bust span measurement is 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. I'll mark 4 inches here, and I'll mark 4 inches here, and I'll connect the points. So the next thing I'm going to do is to impute my dart. So on the hem of my top, I'm going to be removing 2 inches for my dart. So now this is how I'm going to distribute it. I'm going to mark ½ inch here, and I'll mark 1.5 inches here. Now on this point, I'm going to mark ½ inch here and 1.5 inches here, and I'll do the same thing here. ½ inch and 1.5 inches, and I'll connect the points. So here, I'm going to connect this point to this point and this point to this point, just like this. Now here, I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. Now this is the midpoint of this line. Now from this midpoint, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and I'll connect this point to this point and this point to this point, just like this. Now this is a dart. This 1 inch dart I'm going to cut off from here, I'm going to return it here. So I'll extend this line by 1 inch. So I'm going to extend this line by 1 inch because I want to create a new armhole. Now this dart intake I have here, I'm going to return it here. It's a 1/4 inch. and I'll connect this point to this point. So I'm creating a new armhole curve. So this is my new armhole curve. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my horizontal measurement. Now on the chest point, I've already taken my bust measurement, which is 9.5 inches. That is my bust circumference divided by 4. On the under bust point, I'm going to take my under bust measurement divided by 4, and that gives you 7.5 inches. Plus these 2 inches that, which I'm going to cut off, I'm going to return it here. Now on the waist point, I'm going to take my waist measurement divided by 4, and that gives you 7.5 inches. Plus these 2 inches that I'm going to cut off, I'm going to return it here. On the full length of the top, now this is the full length of the top, I'm going to take my hip measurement on the full length of the top, my hip circumference divided by 4, that gives you 10.5 inches. Plus these 2 inches that I'm going to cut off, I'm going to return it here. Now the same measurement I took here, I'm also going to take it on the extension. My hip circumference divided by 4 gives you 10.5 inches. Plus 2 inches for that, I'm returning it here. And I'll connect the points. I'll connect this point to this point. I'll connect this point to this point. I'll connect this point to this point. And I'll connect this to this. Now here, this is the full length of the top. From the full length of the top, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. I want to give my top that beautiful curve on the edge, so I'm going to connect it to this point. Just like this. Now I'm going to impute my side dart. The difference between my front waist and my back waist is 2 inches. So I'm going to mark 2 inches here. Now my back waist is 15 inches while my front waist is 17 inches. So the difference between my front waist and the back waist is 2 inches. So I'm going to mark 2 inches here. And I'll connect it to the bust point. Now this is my side dart. Now I want to close my side dart, and for me to close this dart, I'll open this dart. So I'm going to open this dart to close this side dart. So I'm going to close this dart. Now this is how I'll do it. And I'll sellotape it. So I'm going to blend here. Now I have my tracing wheel here. I'm going to use the tracing wheel to trace out this part. Now I want to transfer it to this part. So I'm tracing it out. I'm going to transfer it to the other side of the paper. So I'm going to cut off the dart. So after cutting it, I'm going to have something like this. I'm also going to sellotape this one. So you see what I have. So I'm going to use my sellotape to hold it down so that I'll be able to slit the front panel. Now you remember this part I used my tracing wheel to mark. I'm going to transfer the lines to this other side of the paper. Now at this point, you have to decide where you want to use for your asymmetric design. That is the part you want to slit, whether you want to slit the left or the right hand side. But for me, I'm working on this part. This is the part I want to slit. So now this is the waist point. Now from the waist point, I'm going to come down by 2 inches and I will mark. Hope you understood what I did here. I just brought my papers together and sellotaped it. So from the waist point, I came down by 2 inches. While on this part, I'm going to go in by 1 inch and I'll connect it to this point and this point to this point. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to connect this point to this point with the curved part of my ruler, and I'll connect this point to this point just like this. Now you can also decide to use 2 inches here depending on how open you want your slit to be. While from here, I'm going to connect this point to this point just like this. I'm going to cut off this part while I work on the shoulder. So now I'm going to work on the shoulder. I want to work on that asymmetric neckline. So this is the midpoint of the center front. So now I'm going to mark the neck width. Now from this point, I'm going to mark 3 inches. You know my neck width is 3 inches. So I'll mark 3 inches here and I'll mark 3 inches here. So now I'm going to label my paper. I'm going to label this left and right. So from this point, I'm going to go out by 1 inch. I'll go out by 1 inch. And from here, I'm going to come down by 6 inches and I'll mark. So I'm going to connect this point to this point. And I'll connect this point to this point, just like this. I'm going to bring this back. You know that this neckline went into the armhole. So I'm going to sellotape this part so that I'll be able to connect the neckline to the armhole. So I'm going to extend this line to the armhole, just like this. So I'm going to separate it again. Then I'll cut the neckline and I'll come back to this part again. I'm going to use this to cut the back panel. Then I'll later come back to this. After cutting the neckline, I'm going to keep this aside. I'll draft the back panel. Then I'm going to use this to cut the back neckline. This is the back panel. This is my starting point, which is also going to serve as my shoulder line. This is my waist point. The back waist point is 15 inches, while the front waist is 17 inches, while the back is 15 inches. Now, this is the full length of the top. The full length of the back panel is 22 inches. So shoulder to waist is 15 inches, while shoulder to the full length is 22 inches. So I'm going to start by taking the neck measurement. Now the neck width is 3 inches. The shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 7.5 inches plus half inch seam allowance. That gives you 8 inches. Now from this point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch and I'll connect it to the neckline. Now from this point, I'm going to impute my armhole depth. Half of my armhole measurement is 8 inches. So I'm going to mark 8 inches here. And I'll connect this point to this point. And I'll extend this line. Now take note, my paper is on fold. My paper is folded into 2. Now I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. So this is the midpoint of this line. So on the chest point, I'm going to take my bust measurement on the chest point. My bust circumference divided by 4 gives you 9.5 inches. So I'll connect the points. Take note, I'm not adding zipper allowance on my pattern paper. I'm going to add my zipper allowance on the fabric when I'm transferring it to the fabric. I'm going to extend this line. I'll extend my chest point. Now I'm going to impute my dart. For me to do that, I'm going to be working with my bust span measurement. Half of my bust span measurement is 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here. And I'll mark 4 inches on the waist point and on the hem of the top. And I'm going to connect the points. Now on my chest point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. On the waist point, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides of this line. Now on the hem, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. And I'll connect the points. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my horizontal measurement. But before I do that, I'm going to label these lines. Now this is my chest point, my waist point, and the full length of the top. So I've already taken my bust measurement on the chest point. On the waist point, I'm going to take my waist measurement on the waist point. My waist circumference divided by 4 gives you 7.5 inches plus this 1 inch for that. I'm returning it. On the full length of the top, I'm going to take my hip measurement divided by 4 and that gives you 10.5 inches. And I'll connect the points. Now from here, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches. Remember that on the front panel, we went up by 1.5 inches and connected it to this point. Now take note, I didn't add seam allowance on my pattern paper. I'm going to add my seam allowance when I'm transferring it to the fabric. So I'm going to cut it. So this is the neckline. I'm just trying to indicate. So I'm going to use my tracing wheel to transfer these lines to the other side of the paper. Now I'm going to open it. So I've transferred the dart to this other side of the paper. So I'll bring back the front panel. Now I'm going to use the front neckline to draft the back neckline. Now I'm going to assume that this part that I marked is the right side. So I'm going to place the part that I marked is going to be facing the part that I marked. That is like right side facing right side. So this is the front panel, the center front. So I'm going to place it on the back panel just like this. Now this is the center back. See the line? This is the center back. I'm matching it up with the front panel. So I'm going to mark it. Now I'm going to trace it out. I'll use the front panel to trace out the back neckline. And I'll connect this point to this point. I'm going to connect it to the dart line. And I'm going to connect this point to this point. Now you can decide to bring your neckline down to this point or 2 inches above the chest point or 3 inches. It all depends on how revealing you want your back neckline to be. Now I didn't add my zipper allowance on the pattern paper. When I'm transferring to the fabric, I'm going to add my zipper allowance and I'll add all my allowances. So now this is my zipper allowance. My zipper is going to be here. You know the zipper is on by the side of the top. So this is my zipper allowance. Now take note, when I add my zipper allowance on the fabric, I'm going to eliminate the zipper bulge. I'm going to cut ½ inch on both sides of the zipper allowance when I'm eliminating the zipper bulge. So that's just it with this. Now I'm going to cut off my dart. After cutting my dart, I'll cut the neckline. Now to complete this armhole, I'm going to find the midpoint of this line. You know it's a princess armhole dart. So I'll connect this point to this point. So I'll just connect it back to the dart. Now, if you want it to be a shoulder dart, all you need to do is to find the midpoint of this line and you connect it to the dart. So I'm going to cut it. So this is the back panel. Now I'm going to cut it just the way it is and I'm going to add my seam allowance all around. Now I'm bringing back the front panel and I'll join it back again and I'll sellotape it. So now with this pattern paper, I'm going to cut the main fabric and the lining. I'm going to add my seam allowance all around it. So I'm going to do it and show you the outcome. I'm going to stop here for now because I don't want this video to be too long. Our next tutorial is going to be the sewing part of this top. So if you found this tutorial helpful, please click on the like button, share this video with your friends, share this video in your sewing groups, subscribe to my channel if you've not done so. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be in the comment section to answer all your questions. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.